This video is brought to you by Squarespace, the best all-in-one platform for any of your website building needs. Hey guys, it's Celestia, and welcome back to what might be my favorite series on the channel, one that I've casually come to call Art Trope Top 10s. Like a lot of artists, my reason for getting into art in the first place was a love for animated media, both in the form of anime and Western animation. And because of that love for it, I've consumed a lot of it over the years. And it's pretty impossible to watch as much animated content as I have without seeing the same tropes popping up over and over again. Not in the content itself in terms of plot, although there's obviously no shortage of those either, but in the art itself. And naturally, the more those same art tropes popped up, the more I came to either love or hate them. And as someone with impeccable taste and nothing but correct opinions, the obvious next step was to make a video series roasting the ones I hate and gushing over the ones I love, while drawing Celestia as all of them. So far, I've done 4 videos in the series, including the top 10 best and worst anime art tropes and the top 10 best and worst animation art tropes, in which I've drawn Celestia with everything from a horrifying fisheye lens angle to the Chad chin of justice, to the nightmare fuel yaoi hands. And because I've had so much fun with those and you guys have seemed to like the series so far, I'm gonna keep it going. So welcome to the top 10 worst character design art tropes, where I both roast and poorly draw Celestia as the character design tropes that I hate the most. Get ready, it's gonna be awful, and I can almost guarantee that I'm gonna end up roasting something you love hard enough that you roast me in the comments for it. So it's obviously gonna be a good time all around. Jokes aside, or as close to aside as I'm capable of, these are just my opinions. The series is just for fun, and I'm not saying the tropes I hate are objectively bad or the tropes I like are objectively good. I don't mean to legitimately offend by roasting anything that you like or praising anything you hate, nor am I making any kind of serious commentary on the value or quality of the tropes in any of these videos beyond just why I hate or love them. You're welcome to disagree, and I fully expect and encourage you to in the comments. Just please do so civilly and with the understanding that this series is one big joke I made for laughs. You might think that this disclaimer didn't need to be made, but you don't have the context of knowing exactly how many people got legitimately mad at me after I made the mistake of roasting the generic brown-haired anime protagonist trope because I had the audacity to include their favorite husbands as examples. I love Dazai and Light as much as the next weeb, but my god, y'all take feral devotion to them to new levels. I only meant their designs, not their personalities. Please spare me. And more importantly, please spare me from a repeat of that rage, because I'm about to piss off a lot of Five Nights at Freddy's fans if you don't give me a pass as a silly little clown and not a serious commentator, at least in this instance. Not that I'm not always a silly little clown, even when I'm also a serious commentator, in fairness, but it's solely the former this time, I swear. But before I enrage half the internet by roasting the top 10 character design art tropes I hate the most, let me take a moment to thank today's sponsor, Squarespace, a longtime partner of the channel. It's become a running joke that Squarespace and I are basically married at this point because of how long I've been working with and gushing about them, and how many of you guys consistently express legitimate concern when a video starts without me gushing about them first. Is it an overdone joke by now? Yes. Do I still find it funny every time I get another comment about it? Also yes. But you don't need to worry, Squarespace and I did not, in fact, get divorced. My love for them still burns strong, because in my humble and correct opinion, they're the best website building and hosting platform out there. I've been hosting my portfolio there for years, something that's only served to further solidify my belief that they're the perfect option for any artist looking to build their own. It's so important for artists to have professional looking portfolios that they can be proud of, and Squarespace makes creating one so easy that it's even fun. That's in no small part thanks to the wide library of templates they offer, with so many gorgeous pre-built options to choose from that regardless of what kind of site you want to make, they have a template that will be perfect for it. Eye-catching portfolios, versatile online stores, blogs to connect you to your community, landing pages for your businesses, they've got a template for it all. And once you found the right one for you, you can tailor it to meet all of your individual needs by editing any and every aspect of it using Fluid Engine, Squarespace's next generation editing system that lets you customize every part of your site with its smooth, easy to use drag and drop interface. They also make it easier than ever to turn whatever site you build into a fully functional online store with built-in e-commerce and print-on-demand integration, letting you sell everything from physical goods to digital content and letting your customers pay with anything from credit cards to PayPal and Apple Pay, and in eligible countries, flexible long-term payment alternatives like Afterpay and ClearPay. And if those features aren't enough, don't worry, they're just the beginning of what Squarespace has to offer. With SEO options designed to get your site to reach as many eyes as possible, visual design tools that help you build brand recognition, social media account connectivity, and so much more, Squarespace has you covered with tools that make every part of website building and hosting easy. And you can find out yourself by going to squarespace.com/DuchessCelestia, linked in the description, and use code DuchessCelestia for 10% off your first domain purchase. Thank you so much to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video, and please go check them out. All that out of the way, let's start roasting some art tropes. Like I said in the intro, I fully anticipate that I'm about to piss off a lot of Five Nights at Freddy's fans with this video, so I may as well get poking that bear out of the way right off the bat with the #1 character design trope I hate the most. The creepy mascot suit. Okay, I know, calm down, hear me out, I get it. I've been to a Chuck E. Cheese, it's not like I don't understand what's so viscerally disturbing about animatronic mascots. The trope exists for a reason, and it's because 90% of mascot suits, whether they're intended to be or not, are more fundamentally frightening than an eldritch abomination or a biblically accurate angel. I by no means intend to minimize the existential dread that any normal human being experiences looking into the cold, dead eyes of a mascot suit, or the way they make you question what went wrong with humanity as a whole that led us to think that continuing to make these things was not only a good idea, but one that children would find charming and cute rather than fuel for their sleep paralysis demons. I met a McDonald's employee in a Grimace suit as a child, and I don't think I ever fully recovered from that. So trust me when I say I understand that this trope is as popular as it is, because mascot suits are not just effective at conveying uncanny creepiness, they're monstrosities that mankind should feel nothing but regret for creating. But as much as I would choose any number of torture methods over being alone in a room with Robbie the Rabbit, or even any member of the Chuck E. Cheese animatronic band that is finally being phased out for very good reason, I also have to acknowledge that their creepiness has diminishing returns when it feels like every new horror game relies solely on those creepy mascot suits to make the characters' designs scary. When Five Nights at Freddy's first came out, the trope wasn't nearly as overdone, at least not in my opinion. They broke new ground in creating sincerely unsettling character designs with their mascots that elicited a brand new kind of fear in both those who played the games and those who simply had a passing knowledge of them. So FNAF fans, don't drag me too hard for putting this trope at number 1, because I don't think FNAF is actually an example of it being overdone or poorly executed. I fear few things more than the idea of being shoved into a Freddy Fazbear suit, and I give the games all the credit in the world for eliciting that fear in me and so many others so effectively. But it's because they did it so well that it feels like the entire rest of the world followed suit immediately afterwards, with a million different pieces of media popping up to capitalize on the fact that suddenly, the shared collective societal experience of finding mascot suits creepy was being validated and weaponized against us in the form of a horror game that we paid for the privilege of being scared shitless by. And gradually, as more and more shows, games, and movies jumped on the trend, the creepy mascot suits kind of stopped being creepy. Instead, at least in my opinion, they started being used as substitutes for legitimately unsettling character designs. It started feeling less like new spins were being put on mascot suit character designs to make them creepy, and more like mascot suits were being used as a way to avoid the need to come up with creepy character designs at all, because mascot suits as a whole were already creepy. Why bother finding new design elements to make a character creepy when just putting them in a mascot suit is enough? That's not to say that FNAF was the be-all end-all of creatively creepy mascot suit designs, or even that all of them even were creative to begin with. I think a lot of them did fall into the same category of being creepy on the basis of just being mascot suits alone, actually, with little more to add to that fear factor beyond that. It also wasn't the first game to use creepy mascots, with Robbie the Rabbit traumatizing Silent Hill fans 2 years prior to its release, and many other instances preceding that too. And even afterwards, other games and shows managed to put new spins on the trope that did succeed at making them uniquely unsettling, contributing more to their designs than just being mascot suits. Just because I think Five Nights at Freddy's was one of the better examples doesn't mean I think it's the first or only example. It's just that it blew up so much that it's not only the example that almost everyone thinks of first, it's also the example that made the trope as popular as it is now. And because it's so popular, despite the fact that I do find mascot suits creepy, I'm beyond sick of seeing them in even more character designs in media, because so few of those designs actually do anything creative with the mascot suits beyond slapping them onto a character and saying, boom, they're scary now. I'm not against mascot suits being used in character designs by any means. I'm just so bored of seeing the same ones over and over. Except in Willy's Wonderland. Willy's Wonderland gets a pass, and that's only like 50% because I've watched it 10 times just to absorb as much of Nick Cage communicating wordlessly by way of drinking soda at people alone as I could. But I've rambled for long enough about mascot suits. Feel free to swear vengeance on me for not liking Garten of Banban's groundbreakingly creative mascot suit designs in the comments. I understand. While I wait for you to track me down and exact your revenge in what I can only hope is a proper Kill Bill homage, because otherwise you're really just wasting both of our time, let's move on to the number 2 worst character design trope, the half-clothed animals. The first and most infamous example of this that comes to mind is Donald Duck, probably because I've spent too much of my life watching Friends, and Chandler's unhinged rambling about how he wears a shirt but no pants but still puts a towel around his waist when he gets out of the shower lives rent-free in my head. And that's because he's right. What's up with that? If you're gonna anthropomorphize an animal, I understand putting them in clothes. When Mark Twain said that clothes make the man because naked intelligent people have little to no influence on society, he made a difficult point to argue with. And if you're gonna make a bunch of animal characters interact with society like humans, the decent thing for them to do is join the rest of us in our commitment to wearing clothes. I get that. I also get humanizing them and having them wear no clothes, because even if there are also clothed humans in the same universe, it's still a valid argument that animals wouldn't have a reason to, given that blue jays and raccoons, like Mordecai and Rigby, aren't generally ruled by the same restrictive human standards that force us not to treat life like one big nudist beach. But what I don't get is only going halfway and giving them half an outfit. Why? What are the rules for that? Like, societally, do they not have to wear clothes at all to be socially appropriate, but they choose to anyway for no reason but pure commitment to the aesthetic? Does social etiquette dictate that they do have to wear as many clothes as humans do, and their failure to do so by only wearing the top or bottom half of an outfit is some kind of uncomfortable exhibitionism that we as viewers are forced to subject ourselves to? The latter feels like it's the case with Donald Duck, because he has the decency to cover his bottom half when he gets out of the shower, but refuses to wear pants in any other setting. And I don't know how to feel about that. I know I don't like it. Either design your anthropomorphic characters to have zero clothes or full outfits. Don't leave them half-dressed and leave me horrified at the social implications of that. Next up, the number 3 worst character design trope. When quote-unquote feminine features are thrown onto a character design just to make it clear that the character is female. This is mostly seen in very simplistic art styles where there are very few design elements to speak of in the first place that make the character's gender obvious. So instead of just either letting that gender be unclear until it's addressed in the plot or finding some other creative way to make it obvious, they just slap on some girly stereotype so that we immediately understand that the character is female. It's usually something like a bow or a flower in their hair, pretty much anything pink, lipstick, long hair even when other characters in the series don't have any hair at all, or long eyelashes and blush. But there are other examples like female characters being given skirts while male characters don't even have pants, or girly accessories like jewelry being added in a universe that otherwise doesn't have accessories. I'll give the long eyelashes and lipstick a pass for 2 reasons. 1, I do that in my own art by giving more pronounced lips and eyelashes to female characters than males, because it is pretty effective at emphasizing their femininity or lack thereof. And I would be a massive hypocrite not to acknowledge that especially in heavily stylized art where features are simplified to such a significant degree that depicting more realistic indicators of gender is difficult, it's helpful to do that. It still implies that masculine characters can't have fluffy eyelashes, full lips, or lipstick, which is part of the reason I'm trying to do it less, but I get it. And 2, while I passionately disagree with the widely societally accepted belief that only women should wear makeup, that belief is so widely accepted that whether we like it or not, it is primarily women who do. Gender shouldn't play any role in whether or not you get to enjoy putting pretty stuff on your face, as far as I'm concerned, but I acknowledge that much of the world disagrees with me. So it does make realistic sense for female characters to be drawn with thicker eyelashes and more defined lips, when it's primarily women in reality that wear mascara and lipstick or lip gloss. Again, it shouldn't be, and I'm glad we're moving away from that more now, but that has historically usually been the case. But the other hastily slapped on feminine features to force us to acknowledge that a character's a girl? No more passes given. I'm so sick of this trope. If I see one more animated show where none of the male characters have hair or clothing, but the female characters have long hair and bows and dresses and skirts, all in pink, so that them being girls is effectively screamed at us from the rooftop, I'm gonna scream from the rooftop. It's about as creative as a Mr. Beast thumbnail, and yes, I realize that my own thumbnails are the anime equivalent. We all make sacrifices in life to get by, and mine is the integrity of my video thumbnails. And as subtle as a punch in the face. And there have to be better ways to communicate that a character's a girl than putting a bow on their head and calling it a day. I don't even know why their gender has to be so clearly established by their character design in the first place, honestly. I mean, we usually see these characters in stories and plots that establish their gender anyway. Can they not just have design elements that are unique to them as individuals rather than them as girls or boys? I don't know, you might disagree with me on this one, but it just irks me. Probably to a hypocritical degree since I do it to an extent in my own work, but I'm working on it. I also get annoyed when people are too distracted by their phones to look where they're going and then turn around and walk into a stop sign because I was catching an Eevee in Pokemon Go. I'm human, give me a break. The 4th worst character design trope on my list is when, regardless of narrative context, villains are designed to have armor while heroes have none. And before you get mad at me, yes, I understand why this happens so often. It makes them look more imposing and intimidating, it gives them an unfair advantage over the hero that reinforces their role as an underdog, it makes them seem physically larger and therefore more of a threat, it makes fighting them more difficult, and so on. I completely get the narrative and design reasons that villains so frequently get armor while heroes don't. I'm not even criticizing that as being a bad or lazy design choice. I think it's honestly a pretty reasonable way to visually communicate all of the traits I just mentioned that define a villain through their design. It doesn't annoy me because it's legitimately a bad design choice. It annoys me because I can't stand how much it breaks immersion for me. When the villain is first introduced, fine. It makes sense that the hero would be unprepared. Maybe they didn't know their adversary adversary was gonna have armor, or that they were gonna run into them at that very moment, and they were caught off guard without the option to prepare in advance and wear armor themselves. But if the hero knows the villain is wearing some adamantium-ass armor that's impossible to pierce and gives them a ridiculously significant advantage, wouldn't you think that they would eventually have the foresight to think, hey, maybe I should wear some too when I deliberately walk into a fight against them? Wouldn't that be a crazy idea? Being prepared? No? There comes a point where it's just ridiculous to me that the heroes wouldn't, after a million fights against the same armored villains, finally develop an ounce of common sense that tells them to maybe wear some of their own, so the assholes they're trying to beat don't constantly have the advantage over them. The number of superheroes still wearing spandex while their nemesis are protected by impenetrable steel is just thoroughly indefensible to me at this point. I get it if they have healing powers or unpierceable skin or something, and I also get that to a degree it's to show that they're so much stronger than the villain that they don't need to have the same advantages as they do to win anyway. But it's just, on a purely logical level, this trope drives me insane. I refuse to believe that after facing the same armored adversaries over and over again, not a single hero would choose to so much as put on a shirt or something more protective than a tunic or spandex. I refuse. Anyway, next on the list is the 5th worst character design trope, one that TV Tropes refers to as Hollywood pudgy. It's when the other characters in a show constantly refer to another character as fat or chubby, but they're literally just designed to be average or slightly larger than the other characters. I may be a little more critical of this as someone who's always found that triggering since I grew up with body image issues and have struggled with them my whole life, but seeing so many characters be called fat when their designs only actually depict them as being a completely average weight messed with me for a long ass time. And while I'm now older and wiser and recognize that it's mostly just a dumb gag for laughs, I still think it's dumb as hell, and whether it intends to or not, it normalizes impossible beauty standards and encourages fat shaming while also completely missing an opportunity to actually include a real plus-sized character. Like, if you're gonna design a character that you plan to have other characters see as and call chubby or fat, you could at least make them chubby or fat. Designing them to only be slightly larger than the other characters while still maintaining stereotypically thin proportions, and then having the mockery of their weight still be a continuous ongoing joke. It's dumb, it pisses me off, and there are a million reasons that it's legitimately harmful. I know it's almost never intended to be. I know a bunch of you will tell me to grow up and stop whining about a dumb trope that's obviously a joke. I don't care. It's annoying and it's earned its place on this list, and I will die on this hill. Give me actually chubby characters and let me shower them with love, or give me death. Of course, I'm sure some of you will just choose to give me death, and if so, you can join the Kill Bill Revenge Squad from earlier. I'll be waiting. Number 6 is probably gonna piss even more of you off, at least at first, so just hear me out. It's the impossibly low neckline. I get it, stop writing your little comments and let me finish. I like boobs as much as the next guy. I'm a chaotic lesbian, no shame, who thoroughly understands the value of a good revealing character design. I have no problem with the hot lady's boobs being emphasized by her outfit in one way or another. I mean, good for her. We support women wearing what they want in this house, and that includes women being designed to show off their, assets, so to speak, to try to be family friendly here, with whatever neckline they please. But there comes a point where the necklines are designed so low with no straps whatsoever that I can't even look at the character without worrying that her boobs are gonna fall out of her shirt with the slightest movement. And I can't suspend disbelief long enough to sincerely believe that it's physically possible for them not to. It's not the fact that their boobs are out that bothers me. It's the fact that there is nothing holding them up, and all I can think about is the fact that they're somehow defying gravity through sheer willpower alone. It's distracting, and it has absolutely nothing to do with how revealing the design is, and everything to do with how physically impossible it is. All I'm asking for is some straps. You don't need to make the tops less low cut, just give me a reason to believe that these poor women are able to walk around without committing an act of public indecency because they had the audacity to move. That's all I want. Up next we have number 7, one that I'm particularly passionate about because I'm from Alberta, which many would consider to be the Texas of Canada. Characters that are farmers being designed in either denim overalls or gingham shirts, or even worse, both at once. And look, I get it. I do. I've watched Survivor, and Big Tom did nothing if not prove that the stereotype of farmers wearing overalls, or in his case, nothing but overalls, has a basis in reality. I've also known plenty of farmers that have closets full of nothing but gingham shirts, and even one who actually differentiated the formality of their gingham shirts based on the color and the complexity of their design. I am from a province of people that prove this trope right, and that does absolutely nothing to make me hate it less. I die inside even more when they also have a straw hat or cowboy hat, which are far too often the quintessential companion accessory for gingham farmer character designs. Please, I am begging you, find a new way to make it clear that a character is a farmer that doesn't involve coating them in plaid or slapping overalls onto them. There have to be more. I refuse to believe that there aren't. Marnie from Stardew Valley is a farmer without overalls or gingham. Nio from Palia is another, although he walks a thin line because his outfit has straps like overalls and his dad does fit the trope to a T. Maybe it's because I've met so many real-life iterations of this trope living thing where I do that I can't bear to see another one in media, but if I see one more farmer character drawn in overalls and plaid, I am going to have an aneurysm. Number 8 is equally nitpicky and would probably bother absolutely no one as much as it bothers me, and it's the ridiculous villain collar. The high, upturned collar that's used not to shield them from the cold, but to turn any normal cape or coat into the most obvious, overdone visual cue that they are, in fact, the embodiment of evil. Sometimes it's literally just that. Their clothing wouldn't otherwise suggest that they're a villain, and if their collar wasn't flipped up and 8 feet tall, their coat would be a completely normal, mundane coat that anyone could wear without making bystanders feel like they're plotting their imminent demise. But by way of it being upturned alone, that immediately informs us that no, it is not just a coat. It's an embodiment of their malice, a physical representation of their overwhelming degeneracy. Evidence that they are in fact so evil that the magnitude of their villainy alone was strong enough to force their collar into a permanent upright position. Similar to the farmers and the gingham and overalls, this is not a criticism of the validity of the design itself. I understand that it contributes to an imposing, ominous silhouette and makes a dramatic statement, which is fitting given how many villains are overwhelmingly dramatic. I get it. I also don't get it. It just makes them look like vampires or edgy teenagers trying to look cool. I don't know. It's goofy. It's so overdone that it's goofy, at least to me, and seeing the ridiculously tall collars just makes me laugh rather than finding the villain wearing them intimidating. Calm down, buddy. The atrocities you're committing in the plot are enough. It's clear that you're evil. You can put your collar down. I'm sure you'll be pleasantly surprised by the value of having your peripheral vision restored after decades of it being obscured by your super cool attempt to look edgy and tough. There are so many characters that come to mind that are legitimately terrifying individuals that I want to find imposing, but they've upturned their collars so high that the sight of them alone just makes me giggle. Could they swat me like a bug? Probably. Would I die laughing at their collar without a single regret in my final moments? Absolutely. Number 9, in what is a recurring theme of not just this video, but really the whole series, is also ridiculously nitpicky, and it's what TV Tropes calls the popper patches. When a character that's poor or homeless is designed with a bunch of usually square patches poorly sewn into their clothing, to show that they're impoverished enough not to be able to replace torn clothing, instead being forced to patch it up themselves. Bonus points if they're also given those fingerless gloves that aren't fingerless because they're a scene kid from the early 2010s, but because the fingers of the gloves were simply torn or worn off over time, and the character can't afford to replace them, so they just keep wearing them anyway. Am I saying there's no basis for this in reality? Absolutely not. I've patched holes in a lot of my own clothing over the years because I couldn't afford to replace it and tried to salvage it instead, and I know a lot of people are in similar positions. Using that to visually communicate a character's poverty isn't unreasonable. Fundamentally, I don't have a problem with that in theory. It's just that in practice, it drives me insane, because the way it's done at this point is so overdone and ridiculous that it makes characters look like they're trying and failing to DIY a Sally cosplay from Nightmare Before Christmas. I've sewn up holes in more pieces of clothing than I can count over the years, and never once have I patched them with a hastily slapped on square of fabric from something else that's often a different color altogether, with stitching on the outside and no effort made to hide the patch at all. Do I speak for everyone who's ever patched clothing? No, of course not. Do I understand that this trope isn't supposed to be realistic, so it shouldn't matter that it's not an accurate representation of reality? Yes, obviously. Does it piss me off anyway? It's on the list, isn't it? It's just, there are so many better ways to show that a character is poor through their design, even in really simplified styles. I can think of 20 more creative options than putting random patches on their clothing that would communicate their poverty just as clearly, and actually contribute to an interesting character design that hasn't been done a million times before. It's even worse when the patched clothing is otherwise completely pristine, like it's not torn, it's not tattered, there's no visible wear and tear beyond the fact that it's covered in poorly stitched on patches of other kinds of fabric. It bugs me. It just bugs me. And I know I'm nitpicking things no one else cares about. I know there's nothing wrong with the popper patches fundamentally, but it's my video and I'll whine about garbage if I want to. Finally, number 10 may be the last, but that should by no means suggest that I hate it the least. No, it's last because I want to end strong with one of the character design tropes I hate the most: the over-designed protagonist. In a world of characters with normal hair colors, eye colors, and outfits that are all well-designed but not overwhelmingly intricate or outlandish, it would make sense for a protagonist to stand out from them a little, with one or two notable features that set them apart while still fitting in amongst their peers. What does not make the slightest bit of sense to me is for them to instead have such detailed, impossibly complex designs that it's like they're from a different universe altogether. They don't just stand out from their peers by being a more unique version of them, at least design-wise. They stand out from their peers by looking like they literally just stepped directly out of an alternate dimension. If you have a cast of characters with natural hair colors and eye colors that are all wearing school uniforms or casual outfits, and your protagonist has purple hair, red eyes, cat ears, wings, 800 accessories, and an intricate, over-designed outfit with a million tiny, detailed elements contributing to its complexity, you haven't created a noteworthy protagonist that catches the viewer's eye as more special and interesting than the other characters while still making sense in your world. You've created a character with a design that's about as subtle as them walking up to you and screaming, "Can you tell that I'm special? I'm special. I'm the protagonist. I'm not like other girls." I understand using design elements to separate noteworthy characters from less noteworthy characters, but there's a limit to the number of quote-unquote special design elements that stand out from the established normal of the setting that can be added before it just looks ridiculous. Please calm down with your Ebony Darkness Dementia Raven Way protagonist designs. I promise you there are better ways to make them stand out without making them stand out so much that it's more funny than it is interesting. And there we have the top 10 character design art tropes I hate the most. What do you think? Have I filled you with an adequate amount of rage by roasting something you love, or do you agree with my list? What character design tropes trigger your nitpicky hatred like these ones trigger mine? Please let me know in the comments, because half of the fun of this series is seeing how passionately you guys agree or disagree, and hearing you rant about other tropes I hadn't even considered. It's my favorite part, second only to being able to draw Celestia in the dumbest possible settings. Anyway, like I said in the beginning, I'll be following this up with the top 10 best character design art tropes soon, and then after that I'm thinking about doing the top 10 best and worst original character design tropes to keep the series going. Maybe video game art tropes too. But I'm always looking for new types of art tropes to add to the series, so I have an excuse to make more of these videos. So please feel free to also comment your suggestions for those, because I am very open to ideas. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. Special thank you as always to channel members Joseph Solomon, TC Pratt, Zelda Deverak 42, Abyss Reborn, Haruki Kyle, King Good James, Cutie Sailor Lovely, Inside Chaos, CP Lil Thing, Art of Amethyst Fable, and Extinction Animation, as well as patrons Batman, Kyle Lowe, Blue Swanson, Cora Fear, Jamisha Walker, Eleng Shi, Kim Yu Yen, Crazy Asar, Gen Tong, Grayson Xavier, MG, Blah Mage, TC Pratt, Finn, Grim Spectre, Celine Merriman, Ash, Eldritchia, The Stray Dog, Ulura, Greg Noble, Decagon, Jenny Chan, Captain Reku, Ryan M. Williams, Cat Bus, Alec Rydakainen, Mac, Lucy Yamajiki, Selena Beebe, Friday, Totally Shogun, Insomniac Sleep Schedule, Lola the Pinky, Wing Wong, Smiley Boy, and Yosue Garnizo, and I'll see you in the next one.